Hey, all right, here we are. We are live for the Barcelona versus Brest pregame show leading up to the watch along on Big Up at 3 p.m. So here we are in the live stream, and we are live. All right, hey everybody. All right, so it's Barcelona versus Brest coming up in about 30 minutes time, where again I will be up on Big Up. So there you go. There's just putting that in the chat there. So again, that is at 3 p.m. I'll be over there on Big Up. We're going to all migrate together, and then we'll get this match started. Okay, so any questions that you have for this pregame, drop it in the chat right there, and we'll answer that. But I think the first thing to do here is to go through the starting lineups. Yep, Madi, you had it right. Gerard Martin is in the starting lineup for Barcelona. So let's hit that. Lewandowski starts up top, and then it's Olmo, Fermin Lopez, and Rafinha. With Fermin Lopez, I'd predict in the middle. So we'll have to see, is it Fermin Lopez on the left? Is it Olmo in the middle? And either way, what we know is that Fermin Lopez on the right didn't work out. Olmo on the left didn't really work out against Celta de Vigo either. So not so sure about that. To that point, Madi, Gerard Martin is starting because I think Alejandro Balde is not fully fit. He was fit enough to be named to the bench for this match, but it sounds like the medical staff and Hansi Flick would like to avoid that as much as possible. Sorry about that. Okay, so and Eric Garcia also is fit enough to be named from the bench. So as far as other double pivot options, there's even more double pivot options, which is interesting that Pedri is starting, but Pedri is starting in that double pivot and not as the number 10, which I think is pretty telling as well. But yeah, Gerard Martin is starting because Balde is not fit today. That is what the report is, that Balde at least was fit enough to be named to the bench. Inigo Martinez, Kubarsi keep their spot as the center back pairing in the middle there. And then Jules Koundé, obviously, is still starting at right back because he's going to have to make a lot more mistakes like the one he made against Celta de Vigo for him to be kicked out of the starting 11. That is pretty clear. And then in the middle, the two I didn't mention, well, Naki Pena, of course, is the goalkeeper. And then the two in the middle is Castro and Pedri is a double pivot, which I think is interesting just because De Jong had that run out after Castro had gotten the red card. So it seems like Castro, he also, obviously Castro is, hey, blew up. It seems like Castro, because he's also suspended for Las Palmas, that might be another reason why Hansi Flick is starting him. I also think he's been Barcelona's best, in that double pivot position. So that makes sense to me as well. And yeah, then we have, again, so Frankie de Jong would be coming off the bench, which again is just interesting because, because even though he came off the bench in the last game, seems like he's not the starter under Hansi Flick. And I know that it wasn't directed to him, but a report came out a few minutes ago, even by Guillaume Balague, that against Celta de Vigo after that match, the main thing that Hansi Flick was hitting on is that he did not like that his team did not have the intensity that he felt was required. He felt like they were like 85% intense, which I guess makes sense because it was 82nd minute when it all went wrong after the red card. And I think some of the criticism was fair for Frankie de Jong. Like, it was really hard because by the time he came on the field, Barcelona, I mean, he was only on the field for 3.5 minutes until Castro got that red card. So he was on the field while Barcelona were playing a man down. But even on that goal, the second goal that was scored by Celta de Vigo, right, because the first one was the Koundé goal. But the second goal that was scored by Celta de Vigo, Frankie de Jong just didn't track his man, and it made Hector Fort look bad because then he had to then switch over and just flew by because he wasn't properly there. Blue Elf, Frankie not fit yet. It's clear as day. I actually probably agree with you. I don't think he trusts that ankle. So at some point, though, you have to either say that he's fit enough to be playing and that he's ready to go and you can trust him, or what do you do, right? Because if he's not fit, but he's being expected to be fit and be put in these situations where he's going to have to deliver, at some point you have to wonder, can we make excuses for his fitness? And how long are we going to do that before he's expected to, defend and be able to give what is being required of him in the system? Well, again, when you play a high line, it's high risk, high reward, but the high reward comes if you're defending as a unit, if you're pressing as a unit, and everybody's on the same page and you're working hard. And I'm not sure Frankie de Jong has been able to do that yet. So yeah, we could say it's his fitness and not just his, intensity or what's in his heart, because that's, unfair to him. But if it's his fitness, then again, that's a question that Hansi Flick has to answer. I think Hansi Flick is answering that question by not starting him. Gabi also didn't start, but I would not have expected him to start at all because he started against Celta de Vigo, and it seems like he's healthy. He still took that knee knock, which is a bummer. Do you think Pau Victor or Pablo Torre work on the wings till Lamine Yamal is fit? Pablo Torre, I don't think works on the wing. He has never played on the wing in his career. Girona had him run out there in a few games last season, but he was much better in the center of the field. That's where he belongs, especially not even defending in the middle of the field, but kind of having people defend for him in the center and then pressing and getting high like that. And I mean, I think Pablo Torre really is, because I think some of the things he does lack in the pressing game, he's just so good late in games when there's space to go forward into and dribble in the middle of the field. And he's so good with not even a final ball, but reading the field in front of him, and his understanding of when to shoot, when to pass in that final third is I think, a high level, exceptional level of Barcelona quality. So Pablo Torre coming off in any game off the bench in the middle of the field is always a good sign. But again, I go back to that YouTube video I made a few weeks ago. Barcelona do have a problem here because the winger depth is rather short, but that number 10 position, I mean, even look at number 41 on the squad list today in Guy Fernandez or Guillermo, he's a 10 as well. So I wouldn't really put him on for one of the wingers. And by wingers, I mean Olmo or Fermin Lopez, whoever of those plays the left wing, and then Rafinha on the right. You can't really put him on the wing either. So Barcelona have a number of number 10s that they need to put on the field. And the same thing with that double pivot position where De Jong, Casado, Pedri, Gabi, they all kind of belong in that double pivot in Hansi Flick's system, and none of them really belong in that 10 position or on the wing either. So you just have a lack of wingers. You basically only have two true wingers, because even Pau Victor with Barca Athletic last season and in the preseason was better coming in for Lewandowski. So Pau Victor really, I think, is the substitute for Lewandowski in the middle. And I mean, Barcelona have, just looking at their list, yeah, they have one winger. Honestly, they have one winger in the whole squad, and that is Rafinha at the moment. And that is something that they're going to have to address in the offseason. Let's get into some of these questions here. Let's see. Good lineup except for Martin. Yeah, I mean, but what are the other options? Should Adurdo be fast tracked for first team training? I see his ceiling much higher than Martin. Sean, you said that, and I completely agree. Adurdo, just speed wise, like Adurdo is maybe double as fast as, I mean, that's mean to German Martin, but Adurdo is lightning. And I think for what I've seen of Adurdo so far, and I really want to do a deep dive of him, but that deep dive will also come as more is available as he plays with Barca Athletic. So as he gets starts and gets more minutes with Barca Athletic, the sample size of what we see from him arriving to the club is going to be a little bit bigger as well. So I'm kind of waiting, and by the time I really review him at the end of this year, as in the end of 2024, so in about a month's time, and I continue to kind of look at some of these African talents at that point, I think Oduro potentially by February, March could be on the bench or helping out in those ways. Because I think, yeah, his ceiling is much higher than Martin. I think Jordan Martin's ceiling is potentially a backup for FC Barcelona. That's his ceiling. But yeah, let's see. Chijoke, I'm worried about the season. I am not really worried about the season, Chijoke, just yet, because historically speaking, for every club the start for Barcelona was unsustainable. Like, one, I think they got that new manager bump, new system. I mean, Hansi Flick was getting the most out of so many players. Like, remember that podcast I did with, who did I do? I feel like I did it with Domagoy, where we kind of went through the list and said, hey, this player have we ever seen a better version of Rafinha? Have we ever seen, well, I mean, Lewandowski, but Lewandowski was back in his best form in 2.5 years. We've never seen a better Casado, obviously. Pedri is arguably back to the best version of Pedri that we've seen. He's had like 2 bad matches all season. Kubarsi is back to the first 3 months we saw last season. You know, he kind of fell off a little bit at the end of last season, but Kubarsi was as good as what we saw from January to February from him. Inigo Martinez, now we're harkening back to his athletic club at Real Sociedad days when he was one of the best center backs in all of the Liga. He just didn't get the same credit because he wasn't playing for Barcelona. And then Koundé, kept going as one of the top right backs in world football. Well, I mean, at least to start this season, almost hit the ground running. There were just so many good things happening for Barcelona all at the right time. And that was without the walking injured and Gabi and De Jong coming back into the fray. And obviously, Lamine Yamal was the most informed right winger in world football without question. So with all those things happening, the start was unsustainable, but For Celta de Vigo, Barcelona were not playing their best. I'd said on the 5 headlines, I felt like that match was basically 50-50 as terms of Celta de Vigo kind of finding their way in that game. But Barcelona still, they've got to be able to finish the job there, right? To win the Liga, to get those points, you've got to be able to get points when you're not your best. And so far in the Liga, I feel like Barcelona have not gotten the points when they weren't their best. So that's kind of, that's kind of the issue for me with not worrying about the season, but yeah, definitely worrying about this little stretch here. But I think when it's true, but when Lamine Yamal comes back, I think Barcelona will probably be back to getting the results because they should have beaten Celta. They didn't, and if that's a intensity thing, a mentality thing, that's why Hansi Flick was so upset. Let's see. Adam, you're asking about Gerard Martin. Oriel, you're asking about, well, you're not really asking about Gerard Martin, but and Mr. Brown, you're also, why does Flick is going for Martin instead of Hector Fort? Based on what I've seen, I'm curious to know your thoughts. My answer is I think this match in particular, Hansi Flick does not want to lose Gerard Martin. I think Hansi Flick does value the fact that, and I think why Inigo Martinez might still continue being the starter at left center back, and Araujo and Kubarsi might rotate. If Hansi Flick with that high line, when you play a high line on one side of the field, you basically get one shot to potentially cut out a counterattack or anything like that. And I think Hansi Flick prefers to have players who are more naturally footed on that side to try to cut out that counterattack. So Gerard Martin being more naturally left-footed and Hector Fort being right-footed, that might be just simple as him going with that. And I think Hansi Flick also has seen more from Gerard Martin in training that he trusts, and I think we just have to trust Hansi Flick in that instance. I don't think that there's kind of some weird thing afoot with Gerard Martin having any blackmail or anything on Hansi Flick, but yeah, I think he doesn't want to Gerard Martin. I'm only going in the assumption that Gerard Martin, we're kind of seeing the worst of him a little bit, and he's being exposed a little bit in the first team. So I don't know. Sean, should Barca look for a backup winger option in January, or will Tony Fernandez and potentially Ibrahim Diarra become the backup options to Lamine Yamal and Rafinha after January? Now, Sean, I do think that Ibrahim Diarra, let's hit the brakes on that. I think he's 18 in January. And so I want him to get plenty of time to acclimate himself with the Barca Athletic. When you watch his tape and what I saw from him at the U17 World Cup, he does give the ball away quite a bit, but also every team he's basically ever played in, he has just been the guy. He's just been faster and especially at the youth level, taller, and he's had space to work with, and the defenders just have not been up to snuff. I think even the third division in Spain defenders are going to be a learning experience for Ibrahim Diarra. So I think his learning curve in Spain is going to be tough for him. But I also think that he has the potential. Obviously, he has the all-around potential. You watch what he did at the U17 World Cup against other 17 and 18-year-olds in the for big clubs. You know what I mean? And so I think that he'll get there. I just have to be patient on him, and I can't rely on him. It was leaked from Barcelona, and I don't think it was released by his group, that being Tony Fernandez, because he's so young. I think that Tony Fernandez, from what we saw in the preseason, could be the one to back up Lamine Yamal. I think it's totally possible. He's only 16. Did he turn 17? I think in the summertime, maybe? He turns 17 in July. Yeah, so in this so he's not 17 until July. So I think that Tony Fernandez could be the answer, even though he's 16. But hey, Lamine Yamal was 16 last year. Tony Fernandez seems to be good enough. And again, with his cousin Guillermo already sitting on the first team bench, and I'm hoping that Barcelona blow Brest away enough today where he makes his first team debut. Wouldn't that be exciting? So I'd love to see that. That would be really fun. That would be great. So yeah, I'd like to see. Andres Klink is also on the bench. Hector Fort, Sergio Dominguez, Diego Kochen, and then Chesney, Eric Garcia, Frankie de Jong, Pau Victor, Pablo Torre, Gabi, Balde. So not like that many options that you'd really, really trust, but hey, maybe something. Oriel, nonetheless, I believe we will win comfortably today. I don't know if Barcelona are going to win comfortably today, but I do know that even though the big narrative is that Stade Brest is like or has not dropped a point yet in the Champions League, they are not coming into this game in any good bout of form. They have one win from their last 4 matches. Last time out, that being last Friday, they lost 3-2 to Monaco, who's having a good season, though. They lost 3-1 to Montpellier before the international break. They barely snuck by Sparta Prague, which is not a great team in the Champions League, 2-1. And then they lost to Nice 1-0 before that. And so they're really, their big wins came earlier in this year. The the 4-1, I mean the 4-0 against RB Salzburg was huge. They collected the 3-1 loss to PSG in league. That's nothing there. They did lose 3-0 to Azer also in the league. So yeah, and then the 1-1 against Leverkusen was kind of the one that made their name so far this season. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're not really in form right now, and what they are is they can be exposed by speed, which I would hope that Rafinha is going to be on his horse today and trying to get him behind what is an experienced back line, but it's not a quick back line. Like Aridara does have some speed coming over from Len. Le Cardinal, he's got some speed, but not that much. And then it's Chardonnay is the other one, and Chardonnay isn't really a quick center back either, just a thick, big body. And then Lala does have a bit of speed, Kenny Lala, but he is again a 33-year-old, so he's much more known for. He's also one of the experienced players for Brest, but he's much more known for his experience. And I think that back line can be exposed a little bit. Let's see some other questions as well. The big player, by the way, to watch for Brest would be Edemilson Fernandez, who's on loan from Mainz. I remember watching him in the Bundesliga in previous seasons, and yeah, I think he's kind of like their guy right now this season. Just an experienced head. Madi Camara is a French defensive midfielder / just center midfielder. Nothing to write home about. It looks like Romain Fabre is not in fit for this match. He is on the bench, but yeah, I mean, I think him not being fully fit, he's on loan from Bournemouth, but him not being fully fit is, I think, helpful for Barcelona. And then Diombi, the young attacker, would be one to watch on he'll probably be on the left side here. So he is a new signing for them, has come in, and I mean, he hasn't really done much. Del Castillo, I believe he picked up oh no, he's on the bench. So Del Castillo is also like their main guy, their main attacker, leads them in goals and assists. And then Ajork, he's also on loan from Mainz. Let's see, here we go. Okay, so who else we got here? So that's pretty much their lineup. Jordan Amavi, former, who did he play for? Was that Aston Villa, I think, in the past? Yeah, was that Aston Villa in the past? Okay. Anyway, but yeah, Tony Fernandez would be the pick. Ulisoji, the B team has been terrible in performance lately. Is a coaching issue or a player issue? Are the players there ready for a jump? Ulisoji, the answer would be that Barca Athletic at the moment is very injured. And again, you look at the first team, and so many of the players that would be playing for Barca Athletic under normal circumstances are with the first team or on the first team bench. Like Tony Fernandez is hurt right now. That's why you're not seeing him with Barca Athletic. And he was a huge player for them. Guillermo or Guy Fernandez is consistently on the first team bench at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I think this Barca Athletic squad at the moment, like the team from, we're just going to go to the last game here against Gymnastique, the loss in that game. Yeah, like Noah Darvit's also named to the first team bench, by the way, came off the bench in that one. But yeah, like I'm not too concerned with their results at the end of the day. They also are fitting in. Adoro has now just stepped into the starting lineup. Garrido just came back from an injury. Gustavo is technically a U18 player, right? So for him to even make appearances with Barca Athletic is a step up for him. Victor Barbera is just coming back healthy. Oscar Arena, who was their star winger in the beginning of the season, came over on loan from Girona. He has also been hurt. So they have dealt with a number of injuries. Unai Hernandez was scoring a lot, but he's gotten a little quiet in the last few weeks. Some come from the penalty spot, but no, I'm never really concerned with Barca Athletics results. I think I would be in seasons where, now you'll go back to the season when it's Ricky Puig and Callado, and they were like 20, 21 years old, and they were in the third division. When they would have bad results, they're like, okay, well, are those players ready for the first team? But for Barca Athletic, again, you're saying, is Oscar Gustavo, who's 17 years old, ready for the first team yet? I mean, not really, but it's fine. That's where he's getting his time. Again, Tony Fernandez the next in line. And will Tony Fernandez go back to Barca Athletic, or will he come right into that first team bench because he needs a backup Lamine Yamal, right? So because of the nature of how young the first team is right now and the players that are getting selected, like even one of the bigger prospects that I always talk about in the academy, Kim Jeanette. Kim Jeanette played this morning for the U19s in the UEFA Youth League and doesn't really play for Barca Athletic. He come off the bench occasionally, but like he's one of the ones that I circle more than Ruben Lopez, who is the starting center midfielder for Barca Athletic, right? And so I'm not too concerned with their. It's not even performances; it's the results. The results aren't really going their way, and it could be, yeah. I mean, maybe Albert Sanchez is still trying to figure out what works for him. And again, with also bringing in these new African talents as well, that means there's new faces in training, and it could take them a little bit of time to get used to each other. So I'm hoping they turn it around in the second half of the season. But because of how young they are now, this is, I think, the youngest average age for a Barca Athletic team in like Barca B history. Potentially, someone fact check me on that, but I know it's got to be up there. So for them to be that young, yeah, I don't know. Tamir, you're not wrong about the athletic injuries, but watching them in defensive structure is notably more haphazard than with Marquez. For much of last year, they looked more like Barca than the first team. I mean, Mark Costato and Bernal were a huge part of that, though, right, Tamir? Like, you've taken Bernal and Costato, who were that backbone of that Barca athletic side, basically in that double pivot. Well, and they really did play a 4-3-3 with Costato being the deepest most of the time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's more that they've taken the players. Again, Bernal, I don't want to underrate him being lost to Barca Athletic. So I think that has a lot to do with the defensive structure. And what I've said about Pau Preem as well. Like, Pau Preem might not ever reach the first team, but he's been much better this season. But he isn't. He's still working on that defensive side of his game. So I mean, I hope Pau Preem continues to excel in that way. I think, Tamir, wouldn't it make more sense to wait, go for a big left wing sign and rotate Rafa in on the right? 100%. Tamir, I completely agree with you. I had that podcast with Neil, and I got to the conclusion that I totally agree that I think that it should be on the left side. It should be Rafinha being the starting left winger, and then Ferran Torres will also come back. By the way, Ansu Fati is also injured, and Barcelona, based on their wage structure at the moment, they have got to get something out of Ferran Torres, and they have to get something, or it's not even or get something out of Ansu Fati on the left side. One of those two players has to do something on that left side. And again, if you need to, because then Rafinha is going to start there, and if you need to rotate Lamine Yamal, maybe you do go with Tony Fernandez. Maybe that's the idea. Tamir, by the way, Neil was an awesome guest. Hope he comes back more often. Neil's really hard to get a hold of. He had mentioned the last time he was on was like years ago, and truly he is. There's a lot of attention, and it's difficult to get his attention anywhere on social media or anything. And then the time difference in Australia is also really hard. So we did that live stream here on not here, but on Big Up, which again at 3:00. Just to mention, everybody here in the chat, I need everybody here to rotate over to Big Up. You can bring it on now. I'm going to go live at 3:00. I'll keep these on live simultaneously. So just hit that link and then go over and join me for the watch along and bring on Big Up. Even if you don't listen to me, put me in the background. You guys know it always helps me out. All those metrics and things are really important for me. So yeah, go hit the link for Big Up and join me over there. That's always a big help. Disregarding timing with replacing Lewandowski, would you rather sign Gyökeres or Haaland? It's not even a question. I mean, it's Erling Haaland. Like, it's just, I mean, I'm not saying that Gyökeres is a flash in the pan, but he is a late bloomer. And I don't know how many top-level seasons you're going to get out of him. He's also doing that in the Portuguese league. And no disrespect to him. He's doing it in the Champions League, yes, but those are also a few one-offs. Like, I could go back and I can name a player. I mean, I can't physically name a player, but definitely he was Brazilian. But was it 2011 when Barcelona and Real Madrid were on the top of the footballing world? It was those two teams and Manchester United. And then it was Shakhtar Donetsk who got like some upsets in the Champions League. And I'm not saying he's a flash in the pan like that, but you have these moments. So hey, Z-Meister, hey Tamir. Let's see here. Just something. Unai Hernandez is doing really good though in Barca Athletic. Yes, he is. And Unai Hernandez at the moment, I always have a player, and Costa was that player last year, that I don't know how to talk about them because I don't know what their ceiling is. But I know that their floor is better than Barca Athletic by far already. So what is Unai Hernandez's ceiling? I don't know. It seems like everything he does at a high level is applicable to first team football at Barcelona. But unlike Guillermo and unlike Tony Fernandez, who are 4 years younger than Unai Hernandez, it just might be the wrong timing. He might be the right player, wrong timing for the Barca first team, and that would be my only concern with him. Because to your point, just something he's doing really well. He's scoring more goals than he was expected to when he came over from Girona a few years ago. So yeah, he's become more of a goal scoring threat, and that's great for him. And who knows? I mean, I think even though he's a natural 10, I wouldn't be too crazy to see him as a left winger, but I also think that Fermin Lopez is just a better player. But I don't know. That's a good question. Alusoji, the new tactic seems to be deep runs past our offside trap. Have we been figured out, and do we still have solutions? I mean, even though they like that solution, or not say solutions, but I mean, I think the solution for against Celta de Vigo was Jules Koundé, who admitted that he was wrong. So again, I'm not disparaging Koundé for this. He was very accountable to this, but he knows this. Like, don't pass it into the into the run of the Celta de Vigo player who's going to run onto it and score. Start with that, and then Casado, don't get a red card. So that's what I would say would be the two solutions against Celta de Vigo. But because no, I mean, I don't think teams have like figured out the offside trap. I think when I broke down that press for that Real Sociedad had employed, I think the Real Sociedad press worked to good effect. And that's a lot to ask of other teams, because even Barcelona in that game, whether or not Lewandowski's foot was offside or not in VAR, that game maybe was 1-1. And that's on the road. Celta de Vigo was on the road. Like, these are tough places to play. And at some point, I do give a little bit of credit to the opposition. As I said, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, those are unsustainable, especially those 5-0s. Those are unsustainable results. But I don't think teams, like, figuring out an offside trap, everybody has it figured out. Stay onside with your fastest players and then get in behind. Like, that is what you do with an offside trap, regardless of when offside traps started to become a thing. Mainly in the mid 90s, they started to pop up quite a bit more. So yeah, I mean, that's the solution, but the solution is to continue to defend as a unit, fortify your communication at the back, and just, stay organized and win your 50-50s in the middle of the field, which I think Barcelona does do to good effect, to the point where that's why Casado is starting this game in the Champions League, because he wins 50-50s at a rate that his teammates just don't. Okay, so I think what we're going to do here is I'm going to get this big up stream started here. So we're going to start this stream. Yeah, we're over here on Big Up. So we're going to start the stream here. Okay, so we are starting the stream over on Big Up. So if y'all can migrate over there and join me over there, that would be a big help. So again, I'll put that link in here. There you go. I think that's the link to the actual show. Okay, yeah. So everybody, if you could migrate over there, that would be a big help. Tamir, last question for you, and then I'm probably gonna end the stream, and then the game is gonna start. So actually, let me pull up the game for the watch along. Let's see here. Let's see, FC Barcelona. We are gonna. Where are we going here? Okay, and probably gonna have to turn off the sound. Oh, nope, sound's already off. Okay, there we go. Rafinha with the captain's armband, by the way. Let's see. The offside trap was made a prime strategy by semi-automatic offside. Yes, Tamir, you're right about that too. Tamir, I'm gonna have to think more about your comment, because I think you're onto something. Tamir. All right, so we end with a compliment to Tamir, and then we're all gonna head over to Big Up, because I'm gonna end this stream now. And then again, join me for the watch along. Tactics board on Big Up is back. And we are, again, hello for everyone joining me on Big Up. I appreciate everyone who already migrated over. So, all right, I'm going to end this stream, and I will talk to y'all all on the other side on Big Up. So